Cruising in my lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, ha, not fucking likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running shit right, see. And I ain't playing games, I create my own lane, making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into gains. I'm the boss, I'm making change. I've been rocking this exchange, popping off and risking things. Gonna make a fucking name, I just wanna be famous. But I don't want that cheap fame, no, I'm not that vain. I just wanna be greatness. 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 Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking try me. If you wanna hate, bitch, you know where to find me. And if you go and hate this, you can fucking bite me. Okay, I'm going off every chance I get. I don't really take a loss, well, I'll admit. That's why I'll make it to the top, yeah, I commit. And no, I'm never getting lost, I get after it. Investing in my own stock, cause it's faster than any crypto hits go, let me spend. Everything that you see is something I invent. And it's only a percent. I'm gonna take shots. If I miss all, forget it. I'll take a fat loss just to learn all that's in it. I'm taking snapshots, learning how to fall and get it. I'm getting back up, always stand tall, don't sweat it. I never back up, I don't miss a thing or regret it. I'm always learning, you could call me academic. I'm always working, never been apathetic. That energy is like a poison, needs some antiseptic. Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking.
Hey everyone, hey Patty, can you hear me? You know, that'd be my first question. It's good to see you too, Patty. Hope you're good, love. This is kind of sad, this Stephen Smith stuff, and I'm totally not surprised by what's coming out on it. Let's see here. I am going to play a clip here. This was from 8 months ago. I really don't have my shit together right now. I'm a little frazzled.
– 19-year-old Stephen Smith was found dead on this South Carolina road from blunt force trauma to the head in the early morning hours of July 8, 2015. Stephen's yellow Chevy was found roughly 3 miles away, with his wallet inside and the gas cap unscrewed. Initial reports by the South Carolina Highway Patrol say Smith ran into car trouble and was likely walking when he was struck and killed by a vehicle.
No answers.
Okay, now that was 8 months ago, I believe, when they made this video. The mom never believed that it was an accident or hit and run or any of that. There was nothing on the roads, nothing you seen in the video. Nothing, except for the boy's body, and he only had the damage to his head. And I don't know. There's some more stuff. You know me, I gotta play it. Hey, Frank Love. Hey, Frankie. Let's see here. It's just sad. It really is. Okay, and then this here is the next thing I want to play. They performed fuck it, a rape kit on the kid within hours after he died. Why would they perform a rape kit if they didn't suspect something? You know what I mean? They had to suspect something. Fuck. Let's see. Let me get it going here for us. Shit. Really help if I shared screen, huh? Yeah, Frankie. Yeah, there's a lot to this. I took a break, whatever, but I was following the Murdaugh trial, and then, something kept screaming. A lot of us, there's more to this. There's more to this, because I still don't believe Alex Murdaugh killed his wife and son. I will never believe that. I think their murders was from a revenge, vendetta, whatever you want to call it. I don't believe Alex killed them. Yes, law enforcement did suspect Buster from day one of this, something to be involved with Stephen's death. They've never let it go. Okay, now we're gonna watch where they done the rape kit on him after he was killed. So trigger warning. I mean, I don't really need a trigger warning for me, but if y'all stuff don't bother me like it does other people.
Been on the job as an investigator for decades, and I couldn't understand for a moment why I heard on a hit and run, or even a suspected hit and run, within 13 hours, a rape kit would have been ordered. Have you, in your line of work, doing this kind of high-level investigation, ever seen anything like that?
When it comes to traffic accidents, never. This was the very first time. I did not have an understanding of why it was being ordered. We were not notified until later that it had been ordered. So no, I have no answers for you to why they would order a rape kit for what would be suspected as a hit and run, which it wasn't, but I would never understand that.
And the rape kit was ordered within 13 hours of the discovery of Stephen's body. Yet in that same time frame, if anybody thought this was anything other than a run-of-the-mill hit and run, you would have been called in with the MATE team. Correct. To do further investigation, and yet you were called off and a rape kit was called in. Does that square at all?
No, ma'am, it does not. I was puzzled and confused from start to when we actually got to finally pick up the case, why we weren't given the opportunity to, be a part of it from the beginning.
Was MATE and your team, or even the South Carolina, highway patrollers, were they ever given any information on what the rape kit yielded or where it ended up?
I know it ended up with SLED, but we were never given any information of the results, or I was not until I retired. Now, they may have an answer now, but as of 2018, we were never given any information of what the results pending, whether it was negative or anything of that nature.
Well, I have a guest coming up who thinks he might have some resolution to that, and it's very distressing to say the very least. I have other questions I want to ask you about that are equally distressing, and they involve the Murdaugh family as relates to this accident. Stephen Smith's father, who's no longer with us, I believe he died about a year after Stephen Smith was killed. Stephen Smith's father called you and had a specific question about Randy Murdaugh. What was the question?
So it was within a very short period of time that Stephen's father had contacted me and asked me about the law firm contacting him about retaining their services. He was really concerned why they would be calling and wanted my advice. Unfortunately, my rule is, or our rule is, investigators and the police, we do not give legal advice. I told him what I thought, and he basically kind of said in short terms that he was not going to do anything at this point. But it was very unusual to me that within a very short period of time, he was contacted.
And then Sandy Smith had reported that they, meaning Randy, had offered free legal representation to that family within 72 hours of Stephen Smith's body being found in the road. And they didn't have a connection to Murdoch's. They didn't even know what the resolution was yet. They didn't know if it was a hit and run, a murder, and yet a lawyer shows up on their door offering the free legal advice. There was another moment I want to ask you about. Sandy reported that she saw Alex Murdaugh and Alex's brother Randy at the actual scene of where Stephen's body was found as she was driving to the funeral home. Would there be any reason at all for two lawyers like the Murdochs, Alex and Randy, to be at the scene of where Stephen was found dead within such a short period of time?
In my opinion, no, not if they were not involved in any way. In my opinion, I could not answer why they would be there.
Can I ask you one other question? I don't know if you know this because a lot of time has passed. It's almost 8 years since Stephen was killed. But this was never a closed case. It was always a cold case. It's now heating up. And one of the reasons that it's heating up is that the investigation into Paul and Maggie's death yielded something. And it's a mystery to everyone. A, do you know? And B, do you hear anything about that?
There is something that there are rumors flying out there that I will not get into. But yes, they are. They could be true. They could not be true. But yes, they are something that apparently that has been heard, said, or found that are rumors that are the reason why it's heating up or did heat up.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe.
Just 1 second, y'all. I'm trying to. Yeah, but he didn't do that, sis. He didn't kiss Buster. Buster's his son. We think Buster. I don't know. Yeah, I believe that, sis. Okay, now we're going to listen to Stephen's mom because they exhumed his body and stuff. 8 years and they exhumed his body. Thank God they didn't cremate him because you see in a lot of these big cases, they cremate the bodies. Like Kylie's. Who else was cremated? Cassie Carley was cremated. There's a few of them that's been cremated. Yeah, he was sleeping with Alex or Buster, one of the two. I can't pinpoint which one. One of the two, yes. In my opinion, too, yes. I've been having bad anxiety, sis. I don't know why. I'm a little better now, but Frank, I don't know. I don't think he killed his mom and brother. He might have, Stephen, in my opinion, yes. There's something definitely involved there. But I don't believe he killed his mom and brother. I think that was a revenge kill. An eye for an eye, Yeah, maybe both. Sherry, you're right. And because Buster was like the golden child. He was the golden child in that family. And yeah. There's going to be so much more on not even just Stephen, the housekeeper, Mallory Beach. I'm interested in that one because that's the one I thought that was the revenge kill was Mallory's. And it could be, but there's a few of them that I'm going to talk about all these mysterious deaths. The housekeeper and Mallory and then Stephen. Hey, Wacky. Hey, love. Okay, I'm going to play this. I agree, Frank. It's just like a dog. Once a dog gets a taste for blood, it's over. And, you know, they're in the deep south part of the United States. And I've seen how that shit rolls. You know, you can fucking hide a body deep in a fucking woods somewhere. And I'm not sure on the housekeeper yet, but I think Alex killed her for money. Honestly, I think because he got that insurance settlement from her somehow, and that's why he was going to prison anyway. He was already going to prison. Fairy Floss, hey love. But yeah, he was already going to prison because he got all that money from the housekeeper. Oh, Wacky, I love you. It's all about money in this family, and God. Yeah, hide it and never be found. I mean, fuck, you can burn bodies, you know? You can have a fucking fire out in the woods and nobody ever know you're having a fucking fire. Go where they make moonshine at. Do anything out there in that part of the woods. Okay, we're going to listen to Steven's mom now. Cher, sis, Fairy Floss is Sonia. We've had this discussion before. 6 a.m. Oh my goodness, Fairy Floss. That's early. God, I was snoozing at 6 a.m. this morning. I'm glad you're here, though.
Love my son, and since I couldn't protect him, I'm going to fight for him.
Nearly 8 years after Stephen Smith was found dead in the middle of a Hampton County road, his mother, Sandy, wants an independent autopsy conducted to find out how her son died.
I want to thank everyone who's donated and supported us from the beginning, but I hope to find the real reason for Stephen's death.
Sandy Smith enlisting the help of a new legal team to ask a judge to exhume Stephen's body.
We're going to hire experts who are going to come into this case with a fresh set of eyes, with an open mind. This is not a Alex Murdaugh 2.0 or any Murdaugh 2.0. This is a Stephen Smith 2.0. It's all about Stephen.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. Stephen Smith was just 19 years old when he was found in the middle of Sandy Run Road, dead, in the early morning hours of July 8th, 2015. His yellow car apparently ran out of gas nearby. The pathologist who conducted the first autopsy on Stephen Smith concluded he died as the result of a hit and run. Stephen had trauma to his head and a dislocated shoulder. But some investigators didn't believe that because of a lack of vehicle debris in the road. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division opened an investigation into Stephen's death following the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. A SLED spokesperson said at the time that information had come to light during that investigation that led them to open an investigation into Stephen's death. Last week, Sandy Smith started a GoFundMe page asking to raise $15,000 for an exhumation and independent autopsy. That page has now raised more than $65,000. Sandy Smith has retained attorneys Eric Bland and Ronnie Richter to help her start the investigation into Stephen's death from square one.
We think a lot of the pre-death communications can be relevant. We also think that post-death communications on different people could yield some information. One of the things that we can do is start a civil suit to look at the cause of death, which would give us subpoena power as well as discovery rights under the South Carolina Rules of Civil Procedure.
And joining me to discuss the latest developments is Sandy Smith. She, of course, is the mother of Stephen Smith, and her new attorney, Ronnie Richter, who will now be representing Sandy Smith moving forward, along with his partner, Eric Bland. So Ronnie and Sandy, welcome to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sandy, I want to start with you. I've talked to you on the phone, and I can't imagine, I can only imagine as a mom what this has been like over the last many years, almost 8 years now. Talk to me about your son. I want to hear from you about him.
He was a wonderful, amazing son. He was very intelligent, spontaneous. He was like my world. And he loved books, he loved school, and he loved his family.
And at the time of his death, he was studying to be a nurse and apparently also wanted to be a doctor.
Yes. He was going to start at the bottom and work his way up.
You know, he was a twin, and I know twins are often very special. I'm sure this has been devastating for his sister because twins often have that special connection.
Absolutely. But she's maintaining good. She's doing great.
You've been represented by a few attorneys now. Obviously, you've moved in a different direction, retaining Eric and Ronnie. So, what are you hoping to achieve by retaining them?
I'm hoping to achieve the truth about what happened to my son.
And Ronnie, let's talk a little bit about that process. You guys are going to petition the court for an exhumation. How challenging do you think it will be to get that court order?
Well, it's not something that happens very often, right? So we have to show that we have good cause for it. And I think that we do in this circumstance. I think when you lay out all the facts around Stephen's death, there are more questions than answers. And the conclusion that was reached, if you ask us, it just doesn't match with the physical evidence at the scene. If you've got a victim in the middle of a roadway, the conclusion is it was a vehicular hit and run, and yet there's no vehicular debris of any kind whatsoever. His shoes are still on his feet. If his car did in fact break down miles down the road, he had a cell phone with him the entire time. So it makes no sense. It appears to us as if he was killed elsewhere and that his body was deposited in the roadway.
And I think that's one of the most curious things, the fact that he did have a cell phone on him. And had he run out of gas, he probably would have called Sandy. Do you believe that's what he would have done? Called someone for help, saying, "Hey, I ran out of gas." Do you believe he would have just walked toward your home?
No, he wouldn't walk. He would have called his twin sister, who was closer to where his body was found in his car. He would have called her, and she would have come and got him. She had waited up for him all night, waiting on a call, but she never got one.
And why was that? Did she just because he hadn't come home, or?
Right, because he left and he didn't say where he was going, and he would have been home early enough to go to bed because he had to get up at 6 a.m. to go to school the next day.
Sandy, obviously, Stephen was openly gay. Did he ever feel any animus in the community? Because we've heard that is something that might be frowned upon in the Hampton County area. Did he ever feel that way? Did he feel like anybody mistreated him because of that?
No, he got picked on at school a little bit, but that's bullying to me. But he never let stuff bother him. He said, "I am who I am."
Ronnie, Sandy launched this GoFundMe last week, and she's already exceeded her goal of now it's more than 60,000. I think the original goal was around 15. You guys said that you would be hiring investigators, pathologists. So talk to me a little bit about how that is going to work and how you ensure you get the right people people that are, grade A.
Yeah. So, there are people that do this, obviously. And thanks to the folks who donated to the GoFundMe page, we're not limited to just the local talent in the state. And so we are going to be looking on a broader scale to find those folks who are involved in cold cases, who have done exhumations before, who are skilled in examining a body as old as Stephen's to see if they can find out new information about the cause of death. So that's going to be a process. Now, locally, yes, I mean, the boots on the ground investigators, there's plenty of those, lots of skilled people in South Carolina. There's folks forensically who can help us examine all the electronic information from his cell phone and other devices. So it's going to be a full team approach. We need electronic forensics. We need boots on the ground investigators. But most importantly, we need that key component of someone of national reputation who has done exhumations before, who could do a pathology on an 8-year-old body now and tell us hopefully new information that we didn't know before.
I'm wondering also, Ronnie, I'm assuming you'll be soliciting information from the public. Any tips? Is there a way that people can submit information to your office?
Yeah, so I'm Ronnie at blandrichter.com. Eric is Eric Bland at blandrichter.com. You can call the office, 843-573-9900. We are absolutely enlisting the aid of the public here because we know that folks out there know something about what happened. This couldn't have happened in silence. So even if somebody did strike him with a vehicle and then move on, somebody left a body behind and didn't render aid. And that in itself is a pretty serious crime. So we just want answers. We met Sandy through the Satterfield case. Mm-hmm. And so we've come to know her over the years, and our hearts have always just been broken for her to be in her circumstance, a mother who's lost a child this way with all these open questions. She wants, she needs, she deserves these answers. And God willing, we're going to get those answers for her.
Sandy, I want to go back to that GoFundMe. It really exploded. Did you anticipate it taking off like this, that people would see this and open up their wallets, because people apparently, I don't know about around the world, but across the country for sure, have seen this and contributed?
Yes, it's amazing. And I never thought it would get to where it's at now. And I just want to thank everybody for all the love and the support that they're giving us to get this job done and get it done properly.
I read on Twitter that you said, I think you told Mandy Matney that Stephen always complained about how expensive the books were.
Okay, now I don't know. Does it cost $70,000 to resume a body and all that? I mean, I'm not big on these GoFundMes when people want to throw GoFundMes into these cases. I don't like that. I mean, I'm glad that they got enough money to exhume his body, but Are they still taking money? Because she had that set at like $15,000 and she done surpassed that. Truly. Hey, love. Yeah, I heard that case, Wacky. I'm not really looked into nothing, but I've been following this, the Murdaugh shit. But yeah, I don't agree with the GoFundMe. And the lady kind of has a smile on her face about it. I mean, yeah, I would have a smile on my face too to, you know, try to get answers for my child, but I wouldn't have that kind of smile. I don't know.
For school, and that you may at some point want to start a scholarship fund in his memory. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, if there is any funds left, it will go towards a scholarship fund to help students with their materials or whatever they need help with.
Mm-hmm. And Sandy, what would you say to anybody watching this or listening to this out there who may have some information, you know, and when I say information, I mean viable information.
If you know something, say something. You can remain anonymous. You
Of course, that lawyer is going to be loving it. He's getting paid. Cha-ching.
know, we just need answers. We want answers. If you know something, please say something.
Mm-hmm. And Ronnie, back to you. As far as the investigation with SLED goes, you know, you're saying you want this exhumation. Has SLED ever brought this up, the possibility of exhuming Stephen's body?
Well, you know, no, but in defense of SLED, I mean, an investigation was conducted, an autopsy was performed. There was a cause of death that was attributed. So I feel like when you read those examination papers, I'm not satisfied that they were fully satisfied with the answers, but those were the answers that they had. So we're not being critical of SLED. We're hoping to partner with SLED. We're hoping that if we get the exhumation done and we could show them new evidence, new things that they didn't have a chance to consider, that maybe it brings their resources back into play and that they're reinvigorated into this investigation. So this is not us trying to end run SLED. This is not a criticism of SLED. What we really want is a partnership with SLED. We want them back involved in the investigation. And we hope that the hook that gets them there is an independent autopsy from someone of national reputation who's done this before, who can tell us what really happened to Stephen.
Ronnie, do you expect to have access to evidence in this case? In particular, the clothing of Stephen that had some trace evidence on it, possibly some blue paint flecks. Do you expect to be able to get access to things like that so there can be some independent testing done?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that evidence currently resides. If it's still in the possession of SLED, then it's going to be discretionary with them whether they share that with us. And
look at his clothes, though. There is no way that was a hit and run. No fucking way. No way.
Eric had mentioned this at the press conference. We'd like a two-way street on this, even if it's just a one-way street. You can rest assured that we will be sharing with them. We hope in the spirit of partnership that they share back with us. But you know, every question will be asked through this investigation. I can assure you that. And I do want to speak real quick to the money, because I know it's a very legitimate question for people to ask. We are donating our time towards this cause. I can tell you, having met Sandy, and we've known her now for years, I have never heard her one time say she wanted $1. I've only heard her say she wants answers. And so that is the sole goal of this investigation, is to get her those answers that she deserves.
And Sandy, you know,
if she didn't want money, I'm not trying to criticize this mom because my heart breaks for her. But watch, she started GoFundMe. I don't know. I just don't like these fucking GoFundMes. They change people.
Being a mom, having to get up every day and go about your life without having those answers, incredibly painful, I'm sure.
It is, yeah, very painful. But I survived through my grandchildren. They keep me laughing. They remind me of him. So
yeah,
I get to see him in them.
Yeah, the grandkids are the best, I hear. I'm not at that point yet, but I can only imagine that they provide you a lot of joy and a lot of comfort. And I just wanted to wrap up, Sandy, by talking about SLED. You know, when I spoke with you by phone, you said that they do keep you up to date, but obviously it's an open investigation and there's not much that they can tell you.
Yes, and I mean, they're working. It's just they're limited on what they can share right now, you know, because it would interfere in their case. And I'm patient. I've been patient. And I can wait.
Well, let's hope you don't have to wait too much longer. Ronnie Richter of Bland Richter and Sandy Smith, thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Throughout the investigation into Stephen Smith's death, some people reported to investigators rumors that they had heard that Buster Murdaugh and his family may have somehow been involved in Stephen Smith's death. That has been featured, that information has been featured in documentaries, and rumors have circulated online about Buster Murdaugh somehow being involved. On Monday morning, that prompted Buster Murdaugh to issue a statement. He called the rumors that he was somehow involved in Stephen's death vicious. He and Stephen went to high school together. He called these rumors and the claims about his involvement in Stephen's death defamatory and denied unequivocally any involvement in Stephen Smith's death. This is what attorney Eric Bland had to say about Buster Murdaugh.
You know, as we sit here today, Buster is a victim. He lost a mother, a brother, and now his father's in jail. You know, Buster, as we know, has nothing to do with this. And whatever is mentioned in the records, that's what investigators are going to look at. But we have no knowledge at all about Buster or the Murdaughs having anything to do with this right now. We're starting with a fresh set of eyes.
For its part, SLED has said in the past that progress is being made into the investigation into Stephen Smith's death, but it won't say much more. A spokesperson, as of the time of this recording, has not returned my request for comment.
Oh, it's 41,000. I don't know. I'm not saying nothing bad about the money and stuff, but it's just never is a good look when you get these big GoFundMes. Never is. Okay. Now we're going to watch something about Buster being linked. Be good. Hey, love. I love you. Be good. Okay, here's a lineup. They skipped 2020 on a murder, and it's crazy. Yeah, I got some stuff on Gloria and Mallory too. I want to go over, like, not today, but we're going to cover that too. The Mallory one is the most suspicious one to me for some reason, and just all of it. But yeah, crazy as shit.
As a trial attorney, he's a legal analyst. He is with us this morning. It is complicated. It is sad. All of these deaths linked back to this family. Buster now denying any involvement. And we should point out this is the first time he's spoken publicly about any of it, claiming his innocence and no involvement in the death of Stephen Smith. So let's start there. The evidence that led Stephen Smith's case to be reopened, re-examined. Attorney representing the family says they want to exhume the body. They essentially want to start this investigation over. How challenging will that be 8 years later?
Hey, Marnie, great to be back with you. I mean, it's very unusual to have a body exhumed, especially 8 years after the person dies. But what you can gather from a body that's 8 years old, I did a little research on this. If a body is under 10 years old, you still have soft tissue that can be examined. You still got bones around the skull because Stephen Smith had a head injury. You can also analyze that. So one thing that you might be able to glean from exhuming Stephen Smith's body is the cause of his death, right? Because it was reported that it was through a hit and run car accident. If that happened, one would expect, for example, bruising in the legs or the ankles or even the torso if a car hits you, and possibly broken bones, not just a head injury. So I think there's a good basis to exhume his body to find out the cause of death, but I think it's going to be a big jump and leap to try to link this death somehow to Buster and or Alex Murdaugh.
What do you make of the fact of Buster responding to this? Does it surprise you? Does it add fuel to the fire for the family? What do you make of the timing?
No, not at all, Marnie. I think Buster's doing the right thing. If he believes that he had absolutely nothing to do with Stephen Smith's death, he's grieving the death of his mom and his brother. I would step out and do the same thing and set the record straight and start letting people know and media outlets know that if you suggest that I killed Stephen Smith, I'm coming after you, because you've got to have evidence to link Stephen Smith's death to Buster, right? And I think the only way you're going to be able to do that is if, for example, there's some DNA of Stephen Smith on some type of object, a hammer, a piece of wood, something at the Murdaugh home that was found during the investigation of Murdaugh's wife and son. I mean, absent that, and we don't even know if that's the case, right? So he's got to stand up for himself, because I think it's the opposite. If he sits back and says nothing, in the criminal world, that's kind of like an implied admission that you did it. Somebody says you did something really bad and you don't say anything, people are going to think you did it.
But if he's coming out saying he didn't have nothing to do with this stuff, I don't know. I was always told the guilty dog barks the loudest, and I don't know. They're covering up something. They know it.
Right, but he's never said anything about any of the other cases. I mean, his dad was on trial for killing his mom and his brother. So it is curious. He throws out the defamation term, which people will go, okay, wait a second. But if you say he says this, but then let's analyze this. I was watching Chris Cuomo last night, and he made the point. It doesn't hold a lot of water, right? You can make the allegations and you can give his response, but you can still talk about the case, the evidence, and some of the concerns made in the investigation, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Marnie. I mean, that's the First Amendment. I mean, you can talk about, we need to exhume the body. We need to look for evidence. We need to look to see if evidence links to Buster and or his dad. So absolutely. But that's different than saying, for example, I'm sure that Buster killed Stephen Smith. And that's a big leap. And that is potentially defamatory. One other thing I wanted to note, though, I think the body.
You know, I could see Alex coming up and taking responsibility for this if it comes out something just to keep Buster out of prison, to protect old Buster the Golden Child. I think that's what he's doing anyway. I don't know. They all protect each other. Buster about to get busted. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, truly. Yep. Have a good day, Fairy Floss. Love you.
Body they need to be taking a look at is Gloria Satterfield, right? Because you and I talked about it during the Murdaugh trial. Means, opportunity, motive, right? There really doesn't seem to be any related to Buster and Stephen Smith. Like, at least I haven't heard anything. But look, as to Gloria Satterfield, I mean, as I recall, I think Alex Murdaugh, for example, represented family members and actually, received a fee recovery resulting from Satterfield's death. So, and I think that's underway. That might be happening as well.
Well, thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage. A mother's intuition. Rachel, Sandy has never given up hope that there will be justice in her son's case. This is the closest she has gotten to that, 8 years. The challenge, though, being 8 years is a long time. Witnesses who knew him or who were around him in the weeks and months ahead of his death. Also evidence in the case. What will be the challenges for investigators and for the Smith family in this one?
8 years is a really long time. It's hard for people to have their memories come back from that time, and for the various different types of tips and different evidence that the state will have to show in order to bring the case and show who did it will be difficult just because of the age of the case. However, it does appear that the prosecution must have something on their mind, that the detectives must have something that has given rise to this new investigation in calling it a homicide investigation, and that may have come out through the Murdaugh trial.
Right, and there is so much speculation around the Murdaugh family. You had Buster this week coming out in his own defense saying, these are rumors, I have nothing to do with Stephen's death. We also know that at the time of Stephen's...
I'm going to stop this one and play a different one. That's kind of a repeat. Okay, now this is where they have exhumed it.
So we have to point out, there's no evidence. There's no actual evidence that we know of connecting any... Smith was a classmate of Buster Murdaugh's. His, of course, notorious father, Alec, just convicted for the murders of his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul. He's serving 2 life sentences. We follow the case closely. So we have to point out, there's no evidence. There's no actual evidence that we know of connecting any Murdaugh family member to Smith's death. Investigators say Alec Murdaugh and his brother came to the scene for unknown reasons, though the point has been brought up that they are lawyers who deal with a lot of auto injury claims, and this was presumed to be a hit and run until now. Buster Murdaugh denies having any involvement in Smith's death, despite so many rumors. Smith's mother says she thinks Stephen was beaten to death.
Why and by whom?
That I don't know. That's what I need answers for.
Counselor Bland, is there any working theory?
I think it was a hate crime. I think, Stephen was a very courageous young man to live an openly gay lifestyle in the low country of South Carolina in 2015.
Let's bring in Bernarda Villalona, a seasoned criminal defense attorney and former senior homicide prosecutor in New York. I know you've been following the Murdaugh case, as so many Americans have, and then you think it's over with Alec being sentenced to prison. But now this case, questions have been swirling for many, many years. How did the state come to the conclusion to reopen this case?
So this is a huge game changer, the classification of Stephen Smith's death. So you have to think, unless a case is classified as a homicide, there is no law enforcement investigation. There is no follow-up. There is no inclination in the sense of the prosecution being involved in this or people following up. So you have to think, in terms of this case now being classified as a homicide, something must have come up during the investigation having to deal with Alex Murdaugh and killing the wife and his son. Because according to law enforcement, is that based on that investigation, some information came up having to deal with the death of Stephen Smith. We don't know what it is, but what we do know, the game changer is that his death is ruled a homicide, and now law enforcement will be involved in investigating to find out who is responsible for killing.
Okay, and you all know how a death can go from a hit and run to a homicide. Do you all know who has that power to change that? There's only one person that can change something to a homicide like that. And that really, it kind of says a lot for me. They found something, and I can't wait. God, they need to give us more information. I want to know what the fuck they found. The coroner is the only person that can change that status from accidental hit and run or whatever to homicide. The coroner found something, and I'm so fucking curious what they found. Because if they found it 8 years later after his body's done deteriorated some and all that, they had to have seen something when it happened. Does that make sense? If you can see something 8 years later, you could have seen it the day it fucking happened. Oh, thank you, Wacky. I'm iffy about being back. I really don't want to be back, but I've been in this case, so sometimes it just gets too much on here.
Killing Stephen Smith.
And it's interesting to note again, Buster Murdaugh, he does not admit to any guilt. He unequivocally denies any involvement. But they're going to unearth this young man's body after all these years. In the short term, what would that mean for Buster?
So in terms of the short term, Buster Murdaugh has already came out and said that he had nothing to do with the death of Stephen Smith. Whoever is responsible for the death of Stephen Smith, I am sure that they are now shaking, that they are nervous because they thought that the...
I agree, truly. I think it was there all along, and Murdaugh's probably, yeah, they're intimidating. You know what I mean? They had power in that city, and I agree with you, truly.
Buster Murdaugh. Now you have that all eyes are on that town. All eyes are also more inclined to put in phone calls, to call the tip line as to any information you may have about Stephen Smith and what happened to him, that now law enforcement can actually look into it.
Yeah, and perhaps whoever is responsible for killing him would see that with so much attention that the world placed on the South Carolina community, we may find out more than they bargained. We would learn. Could technology and evidence prove there was absolutely no foul play and exonerate Buster or anybody else tied to this case? Or could this be a time where the family might never know what happened to Stephen?
It's possible that you may never know what happened to Stephen Smith. You have to think, if this would have been classified as a homicide before, and when we're talking about the passage of time, it's been 8 years because he was killed on July 8th of 2015, that memories fade, evidence disappears. So the passing of time doesn't help an investigation. But what we're hoping for, we got to think that hopefully the phone of Stephen Smith was preserved.
And look now, okay, they got Alec in jail or in prison. He's kind of the main one, you know, that I wouldn't call him the godfather, but you know what I mean? He was like the boss of the family or whatever. And now he's in prison and Buster's the weakest link. Buster is going to crumble. I agree with you, Frank. Why would they name him a suspect? Why would he even be mentioned if he, yeah. Now, Alex is in jail. I wouldn't be surprised if that fucking twerp didn't sit there and sing like a fucking bird. But I think he's going to do whatever it takes to protect his little precious baby Buster.
Observed in the sense that they can do an investigation on the phone. They can do a phone dump, find out where he was the last minutes before he was killed. Who was he talking to? Was he texting? What was he searching? Where was he walking or going to? His whereabouts. This is what classification of a homicide allows you to do, is invest resources, do this exact investigation with technology and also at the scene itself and an exhumation of his body to get a more thorough answer as to what was the cause of his death. And hopefully there can also be like a toxicology to determine, was there anything in his system? Could he have been drugged? Yeah. There's so many questions that are unanswered because it was ruled an accident and not a homicide. And now you have the resources of law enforcement to be able to conduct those investigations.
Well, at least the family is getting some type of answers, or at least a support now, because this case could have just gone on and nobody would have even heard of Stephen Smith's name except for the magnifying glass over this small community. Thank you, Bernardo. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Buster's in a very difficult spot. You know, he's a true victim here as far as the murders of his mother and brother. And, you know, he just lost his father essentially on Friday when he was sentenced to double life in prison. But there's been the long rumored involvement somehow of a Murdaugh, whether it's him or somebody else in the family that has knowledge at least of the death of Stephen Smith.
Should media companies and people be concerned that Buster Murdaugh, the sole surviving son of convicted killer Alec Murdaugh, will sue them? Sidebar co-host Anjanette Levy and Johnny Depp's civil lawyer Ben Chu come on to discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. There are some interesting things happening right now in the Stephen Smith case. Now, this is something that we actually dedicated a whole Sidebar episode to, and the connections of this story to the Alec Murdaugh saga. But a quick refresher for everybody out there. 19-year-old Stephen Smith was found dead on a road in Hampton County, South Carolina back in July of 2015. Now, the coroner initially ruled this case a hit and run. In fact, the manner of death was listed as undetermined. But there were a lot of strange details to indicate that something else might have happened. For instance, there were no visible signs that he had been hit by a car. There was no bumper. There was no broken glass. There were no fragments. Nothing from a part of the car anywhere to be found around the scene. And with Stephen Smith's body, he had severe head trauma, but only very few scratches on his arms and legs. His shoes were still on. There was blood that was only found right next to his body and not along the road. So the question that came up is it possible he was killed in some other way? Was it possible he was killed and placed there? And when I say that, that is when the rumors happened. So first I should tell you that Stephen Smith was openly gay. And there were rumors, again, what I'm about to say is pure speculation, but I have to report this in order for this to make sense. There were rumors going around that Stephen Smith was in some sort of relationship with Buster Murdaugh, the sole surviving son of convicted killer Alec Murdaugh. In fact, that was alluded to in HBO's documentary Low Country, The Murdaugh Dynasty. Now, the real question, now the reason it's believed that the Murdaughs were somehow allegedly involved is because Alec Murdaugh and his brother actually were at the crime scene, I believe about an hour after the body was moved. A question of why were they there? I mean, these were lawyers, it was a personal injury firm, but still a question of why they were there. And then Stephen's mother says that even before the family was alerted by the sheriff's office to Stephen's death, Stephen's dad, Joel, gets a call from Randy Murdaugh offering to investigate the case for them, apparently free of charge. So there's been speculation for a while. And then there was Stephen's mother, who came forward as well. And then I want to go to this big announcement from Stephen's mother, as well as Eric Bland, who is representing her.
My partner, Ronnie Richter, and I received an extraordinary phone call from the chief of SLED, Mark Keel, who told us that it's now the state's official position that Stephen Smith did not die from a highway fatality on July 8, 2015.
Do you have any belief, Sandy, about what happened to your son?
I believe he was beaten to death.
Why and by whom?
That I don't know.
So SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, who's handling this investigation now, rules this a homicide. And the family is now working to order that Stephen Smith's body be exhumed as well for further analysis. But several days ago, Buster Murdaugh released a statement. And this is part of what he wrote. Quote, "I have tried my best to ignore the vicious rumors about my involvement in Stephen Smith's tragic death that continue to be published in the media as I grieve over the brutal murders of my mother and brother. I love them so much and I miss them terribly. These baseless rumors of my involvement with Stephen and his death are false." And he goes on to say, "I unequivocally deny any involvement in his death, and my heart goes out to the Smith family. I am requesting that the media immediately stop publishing these defamatory comments and rumors about me." So given this news, is there a chance that Buster Murdaugh could start suing media outlets or people over the Stephen Smith story? Well, let me bring in right now the dream team. I got with me my sidebar co-host, law and crime correspondent Anjanette Levy, and also joining us is attorney Ben Chu, who knows a thing or two about when words can get someone in trouble. He famously represented actor Johnny Depp in his defamation lawsuit, his defamation trial against actress Amber Heard. This was a trial that we covered extensively on Law and Crime and here on Sidebar. It's great to see you both. Thank you both for taking the time to come on today.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. It's an honor to be teamed up with you and Anjanette as part of the Dream Team.
Honor to be with Anjanette. Don't know if it's an honor to be with me, but I'll take it nonetheless. Anjanette, I'm going to start with you. I kind of laid out the case. If I missed anything, please, add to it. But my understanding here is that after this announcement, the reason it's kind of connected now back to Buster Murdaugh is, didn't SLED say something to say, it's important this is coming out about the homicide of Stephen Smith, especially after the verdict in the Alec Murdaugh trial?
Well, the comments that were made didn't relate to Buster specifically. Eric Bland and Ronnie Richter, who represent Sandy Smith now, they were just retained over the last several days, last Friday to be exact, said that Mark Keel told them that he believes that there's a small circle of people who have information about Stephen Smith's death. And since Alec Murdaugh has now been convicted of murdering his wife and son, and he is in prison, he's in a maximum security prison, sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole, that those people who may have that information may feel more comfortable coming forward now because the Murdaughs don't have this so-called stranglehold on the area anymore. That doesn't mean it relates to Buster Murdaugh. It doesn't. We know, as you said, that Alec Murdaugh and Randy Murdaugh showed up at the scene that morning. Alec was a volunteer solicitor. We don't know if that's why he was there. And also, Randy had represented Sandy Smith, Stephen Smith's father, Sandy Smith's husband, in a workers' comp claim, and had called her, as you said, that morning and said, I'll represent you guys. So we don't know if it relates to Buster at all, but there may be somebody connected to the Murdaughs possibly. We just don't know because nobody's saying.
But Ben, that brings me to you. The fact that Buster has released this statement and specifically used the word defamatory, a legal term of art, you think he's on the lookout right now for what people print or say? And I have to tell you, I think it's interesting he puts that statement out now after the trial.
Jesse, I suspect you're right in that he is looking very carefully, scrutinizing what's said and written in the media. But I think Anjanette puts her finger on it as usual, which is for any defamation action to proceed or to succeed, the statement has to be of or concerning the plaintiff. So it has to be clear or clearly implied. So I think unless and until someone specifically fingers Buster for the murder or being implicated, I think any action by him would be premature because he couldn't show the requisite element that the defamatory statement was of and concerning him, as opposed to an amorphous group of people, even a fairly limited group of people.
Let's expand upon that, Ben, for a minute. So in other words, this is a big news update about the fact that this has now been ruled a homicide. If media companies come out and start talking about the backstory between Buster and amplifying the rumors, maybe not directly implicating them, are they crossing a line here? I mean, look, right now, we're reporting on this because it's a big situation, and this statement, I think, is important. But when could media outlets start crossing the line and be a little bit, they have to be more careful about what they say? And you know what? I'll expand that out. Not just the media, but attorneys and other public individuals as well talking about Stephen Smith and talking about Buster Murdaugh.
I would say, Jesse, that the media have an additional layer of protection in the fair reporting doctrine. They can always point to sources. They don't have to vouch for their sources per se. In other words, as you know, it would be a defense for a media outlet to say, that negligence can be a defense. For lawyers, it's a bit dicier. Lawyers can be certainly lawyers outside of court can be sued for defamation, not only in their individual capacities but also as agents of their client. So lawyers sometimes forget that the second they step out of the courtroom, they're just like everybody else. So I would say lawyers generally are more vulnerable than media companies. Fox News, of course, is a different situation because there you have personalities on that network who have apparently admitted that what they were saying, they knew that what they were saying is false. And so that gives the rare occasion where those media can be found liable for defamation.
Yeah, I was wondering when all that was going on, if you were just looking at that and shaking your head and being like, oh my gosh, could you not have created a better case? That's totally different. Fox News case is totally different. We won't even get into that. Anjanette, so when it comes to Ronnie Richter, or it comes to Eric Bland, or it comes to anybody, the friends or family of Stephen Smith, I feel that they've been very careful in their word choice when specifically asked about Buster Murdaugh. What can you tell us about that?
They have been. And, you know, it's important to note, Sandy Smith wrote a letter to the FBI back in 2016, I believe, and she outlined some of the things that people in the community had told her. And she did talk about Buster, but you can tell from reading this letter that she is being told these things, and she's relaying this to the FBI as she looks for help in investigating what she believed to be a murder, not a hit and run. Now, I think that, Eric Bland and Sandy Smith have all said in the last couple of days, and I literally just spoke with Eric Bland, we have no information that Buster Murdaugh is involved in this case. We know it was in the case file and what was reported by people about these rumors that were swirling around. It's a small town, but they've been very careful to say they don't know. It's just what they've been told, and that they don't have any information that Buster was involved. And Sandy even told me on the phone a couple of weeks ago when we were talking that she did not believe that Buster and Stephen had any relationship. They were high school classmates. I think what gets dicey is when people watch these documentaries, and I think you have to be really careful. And some of these documentaries are very well done, but there was one in particular that I watched that came out during the trial, and I was kind of taken aback because I felt they were casting Buster in a really bad light, and that it was getting up there to crossing the line. And then people watch that, and then they do a news story about it, and oh, Buster this, Buster that, with regard to Stephen Smith, and asking all these questions. So you can kind of see how, if you're saying I had nothing to do with this was my high school classmate, how you might feel like something really bad is going on and that you are being defamed. I mean, there was some guy outside the courthouse following Alec Murdaugh's sentencing who screamed, "Buster's next." I mean, it's just kind of, and with the internet, it's fueling the fire.
Yeah, it's really troubling, especially when, as I said, he is the sole surviving son. Think about what he went through. He lost his mother, he lost his brother, and essentially lost his father. And now these are pure speculation and pure rumors. I am curious though, Ben, as this investigation takes a new turn and maybe, advances, as new developments come out, what action could Buster Murdaugh take, maybe to protect his name, but also the name of his family? And I'm curious because if anything should come out that wrongly implicates his brother or his mother or even his father, is there any action he can take on behalf of them?
Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, the Constitution does not readily allow prior restraints. So clients often come and say, how can I stop somebody who's from defaming me? And the answer, unfortunately, is usually no. That in light of the First Amendment, the protection of speech is so strong, you essentially have to wait until the speech occurs, and then you can sue for money damages. So there's very little as a prophylactic measure Buster can do to prevent a future speech. Even if the future speech is foreseeable, he would have to wait until there's an actionable statement, and then he would have to file a complaint for which the remedy is money damages.
But just real quick to follow up on that, Ben, if somebody comes out with something and says something, what he believes is defamatory against his deceased family members or even his father, can he take an action on their behalf?
It's a great question, Jesse. Defamation is a personal action, and it often dies with the victim, as it were. So Buster has to pay attention to any defamatory statements about him as opposed to someone who is deceased. Defamation is an odd tort in that it is a personal tort.
Ben Chu, Anjanette Levy, always wish we had a little bit more time, but it was great to have you guys here to talk about this really important issue, and we'll see where the case goes next. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody.
JLR, fucking JLR. He should have kept his mouth shut. He kept his mouth shut for everything else. Why did he open his mouth on this? And I will continue to follow this and keep up. And tomorrow I want to go over either Mallory or the Satterfield housekeeper. I don't know which one yet because I've got stuff on both of them, but we're going to investigate all of them because I have a feeling all of them about ready to come out. See if there's anything new that's come out today. I'm looking here. Here's some Sled, where Sled made some comments. Here, we'll look at that real quick. Yeah, Mallory Beach, Frank, the one that was killed in the boating accident. That Paul Murdaugh was driving the boat, and it killed Mallory. Hey, Lucia.
Tonight, developing news. State agents now investigating the death of a Hampton County teenager who was originally thought to have been killed in a hit-and-run accident, but is now considered a homicide.
Stephen Smith's death investigation was reopened after information was obtained while detectives looked into the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. Now News 2's Riley Benson is joining us in the studio, and Riley, Smith's family is hopeful that the case can now be solved.
Well, Aaron, Brennan, Sandy Smith has never bought the idea her son's death was an accident. And for the last 8 years, her and her family have called on state and federal investigators, including the FBI, reopen the investigation into Stephen's death. They're hoping to find answers. Other attorneys say there are bigger questions remaining.
SLED was actively investigating the matter, and that they believe this was a homicide.
It's kind of the opinion of the masters of the obvious. This has been the worst kept secret for 8 years.
A cold case getting another chance. The investigation into 19-year-old Stephen Smith's death reopened. Now it's being treated as a homicide.
It was relief. It was validation. It was, thank God.
Attorney Ronnie Richter represents Smith's mother and his family. He says this is one step closer to closure.
That, it's been 8 years. This is what she's wanted to hear.
A body that's been in the ground 8 years, it was properly prepared for burial, is not going to render up any evidence or any information other than what we already know.
South Carolina Highway Patrol initially believed Smith was murdered. However, an MUSC pathologist ruled it a hit and run. Reports reference connection to the Murdaugh family, but no suspects were ever named. The family's first question is, how did Smith die?
Once we know the answer to that question, and with SLED's resources being deployed, hopefully we get answers to the who, and then the ultimate question that Sandy would want answered is why.
Now an exhumation and exam are planned, and SLED is on board. Criminal defense attorney Jim McCullough says the renewed hope might only offer so much while creating new questions.
I mean, we really don't know what it means. The larger question is why it's taken 8 years for SLED to come to that conclusion. Why the investigation steered away from exactly this conclusion 8 years ago. Somebody should be held accountable for that.
Now, in a release today, SLED says Smith's death investigation was never closed, has been investigated as a homicide. SLED Chief Mark Hill has assigned additional agents to the case and hopes anyone with information on this case will now feel more comfortable to talk more than they have in the past. Live in studio, Riley Benson, count on 2.
Hug it out. Well, Frank, come over here and we'll tug it out. Yeah, I'm going to play something on Mallory here, about Mallory Beach, the girl. But I'm not going to get into too much about it because I want to go over it on a different live. But I'm going to play a little bit here. Let's see, how long? Okay, let me see. Just a second. Shit, if I can get it to play.
Back with the Murdaugh case making national headlines, a light is being shined on the death of Mallory Beach. She was 19 years old when she died in a boating accident in Beaufort County in 2019. Paul Murdaugh was charged in that crash before he was shot to death in June. Here's a breakdown of what happened the night Mallory lost her life.
Hey, Kasha.
This surveillance video was captured near the New Day dock in Beaufort. You can see Beach here walking with her boyfriend. Also pictured friend Connor Cook, who made the 911 call that night, and Paul Murdaugh, who appears to be stumbling. Beach exits the frame last, seen smiling and laughing. The video was taken at 1:13 a.m. on February 24th, 2019, about an hour before the crash.
What bridge is Paul? What bridge is this? Paul, what bridge?
911, where's your emergency?
We're in a boat crash on Arthur Street. We have someone missing.
These are the frantic moments just after Beach went missing. Connor Cook made the desperate call to police after they say the group of 16s crashed into the Archers Creek Bridge that leads to Paris Island. You're listening to Beaufort County 911 dispatch calls just before 2:30 a.m.
Please send someone.
No, we're calling, okay? And then, well, who's that in the background?
There's 6 of us and one is missing.
Okay, who's missing?
Female Mallory Beach is missing.
Okay.
Dispatch calls also paint a picture of Mallory's final moments.
They were driving at a high rate of speed in the water in a boat. Female was sitting on her boyfriend's lap. They hit the bridge. She is now missing.
The front left side, which would be the port side, the driver's side, is split open from the nose all the way 6 foot back. There's a 6-foot dash where the boat actually came apart at the seam.
DNR officers took these photos aboard the boat the next day, showing coolers filled with drinks still on ice and empty bottles and cans left behind. Hours earlier, surveillance footage shows Paul Murdaugh buying alcohol, police say, with a fake ID at a Parker's in Ridgeland, South Carolina, and then ordering another round in a bar, Luther's Rare and Well Done, in Beaufort. After the crash, 4 of the 5 teens were rushed to Beaufort Memorial Hospital. A nurse stated Paul Murdaugh was, quote, only wearing boxers and that he was grossly intoxicated and belligerent, adding that he appeared to be, quote, the most intoxicated and uncooperative of those involved. The hospital took a blood test from Murdaugh around 4 a.m. that showed he had an ethanol level of 286 milligrams per deciliter in serum. The Mayo Clinic Laboratories website says it converts such numbers to BAC by moving the decimal point over 3 places to the left. That would mean just about 2 hours after the crash, Murdaugh's BAC sat at 0.286. That's more than 3 times the legal limit. Mallory Beach's body was found a week later by another boater a few miles away in a marsh near the Broad River boat landing. The coroner's office said Beach died from drowning and blunt force trauma.
Yeah, so that's that on that. Hey, Vexing. Hey, everybody. We're probably going to end up ending this. I've covered what I wanted to cover, and I don't like to go on and on. But yeah, that was just a little bit about Mallory, because Mallory's the one that I thought had that she didn't have nothing to do with this, but revenge, vendettas. It could have, I don't know. That boat accident, that was sad. Because there's one, I'll get all the information. We'll play it tomorrow. So that's about it. Thank y'all for coming. Love y'all. Might be back later, just chit chat. I don't know. Might be on Cher. Cher wants to talk about this stuff, so I don't know what she's gonna do. But y'all have a good day, and I'm out of here. Love y'all. Adios.